Welcome back to the Hearthstone European Grandmasters. We have our match 2 of the day, and it's going to be the upper match of Group A, which is going to be BoarControl versus Bunnyhoppor. Bunnyhoppor, the victor of our first match, moves on. BoarControl just waiting in the wings there because he, due to his higher seed, effectively got a bye into the upper bracket. So he's just been sat there watching and waiting to see who's going to go up against his opponent. Bunnyhoppor, though, I think, look at these two lineups. They're a little bit more even. There is BoarControl on the Druid and Bunnyhoppor on the Hunter as the main difference. We see a double warrior band. So I think this series, at least on paper, sort of looks a lot closer than the last series did.
It does indeed, yeah, and I'm very happy for Boar. I think he's carving out a really incredible niche for himself in Hearthstone right now because he's a top streamer that is there purely off the basis of being a top-level competitive player, really. Like, his stream even is just based around playing competitive decks really well most of the time. It's not like he streams a bunch of meme decks. He's mostly just pushing top legend with competitive decks and, talking about the game at a pretty high level. And yet he has developed an incredible following. And I think over the last couple of years, we've been watching Boar develop into one of the best players in the world. And it's really, really great to see him put in such a performance here in the round robin and to be rewarded with that bye through to this match now that we're seeing up against Bunnyhoppor, who, of course, has already been through that process of establishing himself as one of the very best players in the world. And he did that over the course of several HCT championship events over the last few years.
Yeah, and just a reminder for these players as well, in terms of just how well they've done over time, is BoarControl and Bunnyhoppor, due to them coming from Division A, means that they not only did well in the Swiss to get placed in Division A, but now have been doing well enough to be in with a chance for a spot at Worlds with this playoff weekend. So it's just consistency from these players is being rewarded. As if we go to BoarControl, so at the top level, not only did he do better than half of his opponents in the Swiss, he then did better than pretty much everyone in his Division A throughout round robin, which has earned him that bye, which I think is a really good way to just show off some of the players with that super high consistency. It does sound like the players are getting ready to go into this game number 1. BoarControl on the top on that Demon Hunter, and Bunnyhoppor on the bottom on his Demon Hunter as well.
Yeah, you can see Boar there flexing his 5-2 record just underneath his webcam. But all of that counts for very little now. It's counted right up until this point where Boar has got to sit and watch proceedings with the benefit of the one extra step through the bracket that he's got from achieving that record. But now he's back to the simple matter of playing Hearthstone. And that record, that superiority over Bunny that he's had up until this point counts for nothing if he's going to end up losing the series.
It's just given BoarControl a little bit of a more relaxed start to the day, because if BoarControl wins this one match, he's done, and we'll see him again on Sunday. If he loses it, he still gets to play again, as the group is double elimination. Let's go into it. Demon Hunter Mirror, and just going a quick rundown. We do see BoarControl, a fan of the double Bone Chewer Brawler in his list, and only one Vulpera Scoundrel, whereas Bunnyhoppor is going to be rocking maybe a little bit more of a standard list with the double Vulperas. There's a one Spectral Sight in there, but no Bone Chewers, so a bit of a less consistent 2-drop slot there.
So you just said Bone Chewer Brawler, like Admirable used to say bonus, which used to get a pop out of me like every single week, where he'd say, we have our bonus match today, every time. I don't know why. Just hit me right in the nostalgia.
I'm glad you're enjoying it, so.
Yep.
So I've got now the old coin 1-1 here for BoarControl. Can use that sidekick to great effect, but we can see Bunnyhoppor does have the kind of answer of just doing the same thing. So maybe with his Twin Slice, it makes up enough of the difference.
Yeah, it's pretty good alongside this Twin Slice, right? The response he's going to have here.
Demons.
Boar's Curve is interesting because obviously he has coin, and if you're not going to block turn 5 with Frozen Shadow Weaver, the next best turn is often just coining it out immediately on 3 to be able to block an Umberwing that's come down from your opponent. So I think, yeah, Boar just giving himself maximum tempo on the board here and just conceding that. And I think the big difference is that Bone Chewer Brawler that he's able to curve out here. Just that additional 2-drop that's missing in a lot of the decks right now since Sightless Watchers have been cut.
And it makes a lot of sense when you consider the mirror as well, right? Because how often in the mirror match are you thinking for Bunnyhoppor now, okay, do I actually hero power into this 2-4? To just nudge it a little bit? Well, you can't really nudge a Bone Chewer Brawler because you'll die. Because it gains attack based on it taking damage. So it's a little bit spicy, and it's another great target for a sidekick, obviously, because if it gains attack when it takes damage, giving it more health to be able to take more damage is a natural synergy there. So I think it's a pretty heads-up choice, even though it's not really been picked up in general, say on ladder, for example.
Agreed. And I also think with this play, despite, even without the Bone Chewer Brawler being in hand, Boar has very little fear of an Umberwing play here because his minions just don't really care too much about an Umberwing, so he's just deciding that he's not going to need that Frozen Shadow Weaver early game. He can potentially save it for those big turn 5 swings instead. But yeah, I like the Bone Chewer edition. I can't even say that word, apparently. The Bone Chewer edition.
Exactly, so you've got to really put some effort into it. And then it starts to roll off the tongue. Spectral Sight, just a one-off in Bunnyhoppor's list, but getting the value there, just drawing it off the top means it is active. But the follow-up is meager at best, and look at the job already. Bunnyhoppor can't just poke in, right? He just can't, because he's going to take way more damage on the backswing.
He certainly is. Yeah, and despite all the, gaining attack mechanics that you were talking about, just having a taunt in the early game like this, it does do, the Tar Creeper job, right? Obviously it's not as high a quality card as Tar Creeper was, but we did see Tar Creeper just sneaking into aggro decks. Everyone immediately viewed it as a defensive card because it felt like that. But then aggro decks started playing it and just hiding their big aggressive minions behind a Tar Creeper in the early game, and that just meant that those minions could just continue to connect with face.
And as we take a second to step into Raven tries cards in decks discussion, it's one of the reasons I was trying Overconfident Orc in Demon Hunter. Because I thought, well, for the mirror, it's got to be amazing, right? It's just like a Tar Creeper. The problem is, it's significantly worse in tons of other matchups. Whereas Bone Chewer Brawler does not the same job, but a similar job. And he's good in a lot of other matchups as well, because it's still a fairly aggressive 2-drop and not a pretty wimpy-looking 3-drop in relative to his attack. So, yeah, it's just a good card, I think. I think it's going to see more play going forward.
Yeah, I think the 3-drop slot is also just more heavily contested, right? With Frozen Shadow Weaver pretty much being core at this point, I would argue.
Right.
So there's Satyr Overseer, there's Frozen Shadow Weaver, there's Volpira Scoundrels on some people's lists as well.
Got Blowtorch.
Blowtorch Saboteur, yeah. Yeah, the Raven special. Speaking of cards Raven likes to play, we tested a Demon Hunter mirror yesterday. Raven spent about 30 minutes scouring through all the lists to find the best one he could find for the mirror, just so he could achieve a meager 50% win rate against me.
It's all acting like a 50% win rate against me is a brag.
It is when I was playing a list that was like 30% in the mirror, yeah.
Just leaving out the fact that I literally picked the alphabetically first list available to me. I didn't even look what the list was.
That is what happened, yeah. Yep, everything else I said is accurate.
Yep. Oh, this is rough, though. Having to play a Satyr out when you know you cannot use its effect that turn is just going to get farmed.
Yeah, and our little petty squabbles aside, I do want to highlight the play Boar made last turn. It was a Frozen Shadow Weaver going into turn 4, which conventional wisdom would tell you is weird at best in the matchup, because you don't really block anything. But what Boar blocked that turn was a hero power and a second slice being able to take out a 4-2. So he's essentially just banked 4 damage from a Bone Chewer Brawler, banked 4 damage from a Frozen Shadow Weaver, and then he's just able to then ship that all face on the following turn and be able to back that up with just significantly more aggression.
And also just negated a 2-2 for Bunnyhoppor. Negated a whole minion, right?
Yep.
It's a huge turn.
Like,
and
sure,
these...
yeah. But from Boar's perspective, he doesn't know about the Overseer. He did know about the second slice in the hero
sure,
power,
yeah. I'm just saying as an extra outcome bonus of what actually happened. Yeah, so it's pretty huge. And now look at this Bone Chewer. It's done so much work. It's gonna die, but look at it. Ends up dealing an extra 4 there due to the weapon. He's just dead. He's not quite.
The humanity Raven. He's at 2.
1.
He's dead.
It's a great countdown there. BoarControl taking game number 1 in honestly an absolutely vicious mirror match. I don't think outside of Zoo of old, we've seen maybe Shaman back in the day, but we've seen quite as vicious a mirror match as the Demon Hunter one is at the moment, right? It feels like just one slip up and you just can't come back unless you do something truly insane. So it's so crazy there. But again, we see a difference in the build. Bone Chewer Brawl is there for BoarControl. He did draw it, of course, but yep, that's why you put it in the deck. And it put some insane work in and some nice heads-up play using that Twin Slice nice and early to secure that board with the Battle Mage and the sidekick. Really strong play there from BoarControl and a great display of just matchup knowledge, honestly.
Yeah, I think most importantly, just that off curve, I guess we'll refer to it as Frozen Shadow Weaver because it's a 5-drop in the matchup, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying. But in that scenario, like I genuinely think I might have missed that. It just didn't matter. Turn 5 didn't matter if he made a turn that aggressive on that turn by taking the trade, by quote enraging his Bone Chewer Brawler, and then by loading up the Frozen Shadow Weaver as just another 4 damage minion. By the time turn 5 rolled around, we saw exactly what happened. You don't need to freeze your opponent, because if they play Warglaives of Azzinoth, they're dead. If they play Second Slice and Gladebound Adept, they're dead. There's just too much minion pressure coming back the other way. So yeah, I think that is definitely potentially something that I could have missed in that scenario, but Boar, way too good to be missing little cute lines like that and finding his way through, picking up a 1-0 victory here in the first game.
And that's always the caveat, isn't it? Especially in the mirrors, of course, is yes, Warglaives, we've seen time and time again in the past, it can snap you back in a game because you can swing it against minions so many times, clear up boards and so on. But if you have already taken a certain amount of damage before that turn anyway, well, it doesn't matter because you are so far behind that maybe even hero powers plus the odd card can just get the job done all the time anyway. So pretty crazy overall, but we are going to be going into game number 2 shortly, where BoarControl does have access to his Druid and his Rogue left over now. And interestingly enough, Sottle, this Druid list is almost a hybrid between the full Dragon Druid list we've seen from, say, Malygos and such, and then with just the Emerald Explorer and the Breath of Dreams has been the only, I would say, additional inclusions to Spell Druid.
Yeah, funnily enough, I think Hybrid Druid is what this has become colloquially known as, because Druid technology has advanced at a very rapid rate over the last couple of weeks. And there was just the old-fashioned Spell Druid that we've seen, terrorizing APAC for weeks and weeks and weeks. Then Boar came up with the Imprisoned Satyr plus Giant Dragons list on stream, and then refined that into the version that didn't have the Imprisoned Satyr. Then other players took that build and kind of created this weird hybrid world where you still get to play Breath of Dreams and Dragons, which gives you the insane ramp potential at the start of the game, but you have the one thing that was missing from Boar's original Dragon Druid, I should say, which is the payoff for Glowfly Swarm, which is something that was sorely missing in the previous deck, because now you still have a Power of the Wild and a Savage Roar, so you can punish people when you actually get early Glowfly and they don't have the answer for it, because previously that didn't really happen. Like, your Glowfly was a 5-mana 10-10 or a 5-mana 12-12, like whatever, that's fine. But it wasn't the game-ending play that we can see it be in straight-up Spell Druid. So this version of the deck does seem to have a lot of the best of both worlds going on, and I'm certainly interested in it because I do feel like Spell Druid misses a lot of tricks in a lot of situations. I do think it's not consistent enough to ramp, and then based on that, it can just fall apart if it doesn't hit that overgrowth early. But at the same time, I think the Dragon Druid that Boar pioneered was a little bit linear and one-dimensional and very, very heavily reliant on Ysera Dragons coming down and being huge threats for them. So this version of the deck that just matches the two together, I think does a really, really great job of taking a lot of the strengths from both versions of the decks, but leaving behind a lot of the weaknesses.
I feel you're pretty hype on this Druid list, so you like it?
I mean, if you were going to force me to play Druid, this is the list I'd play right now, but I still wouldn't bring Druid.
It's also the portrait you'd play as well, most importantly.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
But on the other side, we do have Bunnyhoppor on his Highlander Hunter. And we do see the Bone Chewer Brawler come down for Bunnyhoppor as well, as he does play in this list. Again, a card that does... I think I saw it in Highlander Hunter before I saw it being used anywhere else, honestly. But still, just a pretty heavy list with a lot of... Or I guess a pretty focused list with all those cards being in the 1, 2, and 3 drop slots. For Hunter means he's going to get off to a fairly consistent opening. And I think this is the sort of hand that can do really well versus Druid, honestly. Bone Chewer Brawler here. He has Weapon or Primordial Explorer. Or even Frozen Shadow Weaver, but I think that might be a little bit better to be used later on, honestly.
I move quickly.
Yeah, the hand does have some little bits of awkwardness. He only has one dragon in his hand for the Stormhammer right now, and he also only has one dragon in his hand for the Corrosive Breath right now, so that might have some impact on how he's going to play his curve. Of course, the Primordial Explorer will replace itself in hand.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of, like, are you going to pick Evasive Feywing from that and then curve that out and then be out of dragons again? But I think at that point, you're probably just trusting that you're going to pick up a dragon or two from the rest of your deck at that point. And there's always the chance that Primordial Explorer just hands you, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza or something that you're going to end up taking and holding in your hand to activate all these cards. But it's just a little bit contradictory, right? You want a dragon to play for the Stormhammer, but you want a dragon to hold for the Corrosive Breath.
Yeah. So I wouldn't even mind just seeing a relatively early Corrosive Breath. Obviously a relevant one. I'm not saying Bunny should Corrosive Breath just randomly his own minion to get out of hand, but still, I think there are enough dragons that he might get there anyway. So far, though, BoarControl is now considering the use of Innovate into Overgrowth. Whether he wants to at all, or whether he wants to straight up Bog Beam this Bone Chewer. Just get it out of the way.
Bog Beam this Bone Chewer. Things Hearthstone casters say.
Wasn't wrong.
Nope. It's just a very weird collection of sounds that somehow made sense.
Now with that Fairy Dragon, though, it's a great follow-up for next turn if he wants to equip the Stormhammer now.
Ooh, looks like we have a little bit of a spectator issue, which I have on my client as well, so I can't even fill you in from my side. Unlucky.
What I can tell you is, though, it's going to be 3 dragons offered. So
nice. Yeah, I like it.
Bunnyhoppor's going to end up with one of them. And it's... yeah. That's all I've got, I'm sorry.
It's going to cost somewhere between 2 and 10 mana.
It's going to be a the Rot Nest. Very powerful, even if it doesn't really end up killing anything great. Like right now, if Glowfly comes down, it's going to be very limited, right? It's not going to be huge Glowfly because the hand size just isn't there.
Yeah.
So even if Rot Nest comes down next turn, not they would have to, but it does have coin against the Glowfly turn. Even it just killing a 2/2 and putting a 6/5 on board is very, very powerful. Definitely nothing to sniff at here.
And Boar just playing his cards here. Glowfly Swarm for exactly Force of Nature. But he does still soften up this board very nicely, and that's pretty crucial because his next turn is already looking like Mount Seller Moonfire Bogbeam. So if just one of these 2/3s, has to take a value trade into one of the 2/2s, then suddenly there's your Moonfire target for the following turn.
I actually think I like Rot Nest. I'm a huge fan of just getting Stormhammer equipped and start swinging, but I think just a 6/5, like what even kills a 6/5 for Druid? And you have a second one as well, so it's not as if it messes with your curve. You could just drop it again the turn after.
Right.
Looks like he's going to go for the Fairy Dragon. Which still does put a good chunk of power on board, allows him to get that weapon equipped.
I supply only the finest creatures.
Well, here's the bad news for Bunny. Or at least the bad news is about to come, as there's 3 0-cost spells with only 4 cards in hand for BoarControl, which is actually pretty insane.
Oh!
That's a good one.
That Zixor could just be an absolute game ender here. Where does the Ironbark go, though?
I think it just has to go on the Mount Cell.
What was I thinking of again?
Does it?
Everything else, everything else just dies to the weapon.
No. Nothing dies to the weapon.
All right, okay, I guess. Gets close to dying to the weapon. How about that? Is that better? Again, well, okay. So the problem is, like, I'm looking at Unleash. I'm looking at Corrosive. There's just a lot of ways for them to kill this off. I don't really know what the punish is for having the taunt on the Mount Seller.
I wonder.
I mean, the argument is that like that's the minion that they want to kill anyway, so you're just kind of doubling down on the thing that they want to end up doing. If it's if it's a Zephyrus answer, if it's an emergency Rot Nest Drake, and it just snipes the Mount Seller anyway.
All those things happen anyway, regardless, though, right? I think I'd rather the minion just have insane levels of health, which Hunter doesn't really have a way to deal.
Right, but if those things happen anyway, you then just have a 4/4 taunt instead of just having no minions left. Because Bunny just gets to pick apart the rest of the board with whatever else, including the weapon.
I moves quickly. I wonder.
Alright, Boar wants to hit card draw this turn more than anything he's ever wanted before. And if you wish hard enough, the game will reward you.
3 dragons! Oh, was that an overflow? Oh, wow. 1 dragon, though.
Yep, Sarah down. But it's unlikely to matter in this position because these glowflies are just going to run away with the game. Although that is another minion discarded, so that is about as unimpressive as a double Fungal Fortunes turn could have been for Boar.
The problem is for Bunnyhoppor is it got the overflow, didn't it? That's the big one. I think if it just didn't get the overflow, then it'd have way much more of a chance here. But now it pretty much is just going to have to be the Rot Nest snipe.
Here!
It's not it, and it's only going to get worse from here.
It's just lethal. Savage Raw Hero Power, GG.
And just like that, the power of the Mount Seller. But honestly, that was looking rough for BoarControl, and quite unlikely on Bunnyhopper's end, I think, because if we look, BoarControl did only have, what, 4 cards in hand, or 5, I think, and it was like Mount Seller and 3 0-mana spells. It was like as good as it was ever going to be in that situation for BoarControl. So impressive the way he did part his way out of it. But if even maybe 1 or 2 of those cards suddenly aren't just 0 cost, say the Moonfire is just something else, the board looks a little bit smaller, like a little bit more manageable. But honestly, I do wind back and just wonder if maybe a bit cast division for me, but if just coining Rot Nest into Rot Nest was always just super powerful, right? Because it's not only kills off the 2/2 like you do anyway, activates the weapon for next turn if you need to pivot, but also it's a 6/5 into another 6/5 that then still kills off another minion, right? So I don't know. For me against Druid, I found that just having the biggest minions on board makes it the most awkward to deal with, because suddenly the Bog Beam doesn't clear it up. It needs to be Bog Beam plus Crystal Power or Wrath or something like that. And that makes, if you stick anything that big, Druid starts to struggle. But we'll see how the rest of the match plays out. It's BoarControl now. Only has Rogue left.
Yeah, no, I did like that suggestion as well. I was kind of into the Rot Nest Drake plan, but I also want to commend Boar for the Innovate. Was it Coin or Innovate? The playing Overgrowth a turn early play.
It was Innovate, yeah.
Because you brought it up, and I was sort of looking at it and getting prepared to give you my answer, and then Boar just did it anyway, and we kind of moved on. But I was like leaning no at the time, because in my head, like playing Glowfly Swarm there as the follow-up, which is what the only real follow-up his deck possibly could have had, unless he top decks Emerald Explorer off the top, just seems so overwhelming there for 3 2/2s. But Boar has enough experience with that deck. I think he's been playing it for like 3 days straight on stream or something ridiculous to recognize that, Force of Nature there on 5 mana was basically what he needed just to be able to soften things up just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really, really solid play overall. But we are going to go down to this Rogue for BoarControl, and it is not the one, or not strictly the one we've been seeing too much of. It's more of a slightly older list of the the stealth package with Spy Mistresses and the Greyheart Sages involved here. So pretty much standard from a couple of weeks ago. No Quested Adventurers in this list for BoarControl, so interested to see how that one plays out. He's going to be going up against Bunnyhoppor's Demon Hunter, and so far, both players having access to a 1-drop. Seems pretty good. BoarControl having Coin, Greyheart Sage, or Seal Fate looks strong too if needed. But Bunnyhoppor doesn't have a sidekick to really buff this Battle Mage up, so he's going to have to settle for a Chaos Strike, push a little bit more damage, cycle through the deck. Never the end of the world. I think Bunnyhoppor is really wanting to go a little bit wider for this turn.
A cruel fate awaits you in the ashes.
Does allow BoarControl as well to just coin out this Greyheart Sage, get the card draw going, and if BoarControl's not feeling that comfortable, he can just trade this Spy Mistress into the Battle Mage. I don't really think he loses out on too much. Yes, maybe there's a better target for it, especially looking at the Scoundrel or the Shadow Weaver in hand for Bunnyhoppor. But honestly, if your first route against Demon Hunter is to just not take as much face damage in the early game, that's never a bad route to take.
Demons? Demons.
So here with the Sage being played, BoarControl getting some good card draw. Bunnyhoppor has to work out whether he wants to freeze this or whether he wants to just go Vulpera Scoundrel. But the problem is it just always just dies to this Greyheart Sage at best.
Demons.
Yeah, not the most promising looking start here. Just a little bit slow and clunky in the early game. None of those turbo beaming sidekick starts that you like to have against Rogue where you're dominating the board nice and early. And this honestly feels like way too early in the matchup for Rogue to be taking over. They do quite often take over the board when it gets to the mid game, but quite often if it's late enough, the Demon Hunter has just done enough damage in the early game that they can just ignore minions and go over the top. When it happens this early in the matchup, suddenly that's very, very scary from the Demon Hunter perspective, because you then have to start playing board control yourself. And board control just involves tanking minions with your face most of the time, which Rogue is very well equipped to punish.
Yeah, the tools are decent for Bunnyhoppor, but it's whether decent's going to be good enough, right?
Yeah.
Like, there is the Warglaives, there is a Shadow Weaver, but funnily enough, because BoarControl isn't running Quest and Adventurers, the Shadow Weaver's slightly less powerful in a roundabout way, as there just aren't as many big targets to try and freeze out, and it's not really like in current meta, Rogue really utilizes those weapon attacks, right?
Yeah, and it is interesting seeing Boar going Stealth Rogue here in a world where a lot of people are still going Secrets, but most people are now leaning Questing, particularly in Europe. But I heard him talk about it on stream, and I don't know whether this was an expectation of the meta that he thought he was facing. But he said that he likes this version of the deck, or he likes Spy Mistress in this version of the deck in particular, in the Hunter matchup, because if you play Spy Mistress on turn 1, in his words, the game ends. There is nothing Hunter can do about it, which you can kind of see what he's talking about, right? Because if Rogue's going first, drops a Spy Mistress, what on earth do you do as a Hunter into that position?
Right. And also, because Bunnyhoppor didn't have access to the sidekick, he couldn't even say, well, if you want to get a trade, you have to use your dagger, which left BoarControl to just coin out Greyheart Sage on turn 2, which is obviously insane.
Yeah, and that dynamic is remarkably similar against both Hunter and the Demon variety as well, I would argue.
You could even just go for the trade here and use the Witchy Lackey on the Greyheart Sage. That's pretty good. Wait, that's good,
okay.
right? You get
That's
another
really
one.
good, yeah. I mean,
That's
for now it
insane.
is. For now it is. It starts to get a bit weird as the game continues, but immediately on that turn, that's a very, very strong outcome.
That's the first time I've ever seen that on board in a game of Hearthstone.
Really?
Yeah.
They're like... You need to dig deep into the YouTube Hearthstone meme video scene, because that card is huge.
And now, though, although BoarControl looks like he's playing a fairly slow game here with just Shield of Galakron with no board, but this is fast enough, or at least secure enough, to deal with Demon Hunter so far, because Bunnyhopper's still on the back foot. Can I beam this, swing, and then just get the Glaive Bound to go face?
Yeah.
And then just try and support the Glaive Bound to go face as often as possible to catch up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the world of difference, though, with Boar at 26, because Rogue is one of the best classes when they play Eviscerates at just tempoing back against a Glaive Bound Adept. But often when you get into this scenario, you want to have done 12, 14, 16 damage in the early game by your minions sticking, and then you don't care if they tempo back against your Glaive-bound Adept. You just hit them in the face with another one the next turn until they're dead, you know? But in this scenario, 26 to 22, and then you just lose tempo again to the Eviscerate on the next turn. It's not a good feeling.
Oh, gonna go for the freeze and draw instead. Okay, I can get behind this actually. Maybe get to a skull, maybe go for a more explosive plan.
Right.
A little bit later down the line. It's a little bit slower, but might be a bit more powerful, honestly.
Right.
And also, BoarControl's not exactly dead either. Right now, is he 20 health? You're looking fairly safe versus Rogue, for the near future at least.
Trying to find plays to fill out his curve here, just drops Temple Berserker instead. I don't think there's any interest in this Rush Lackey hitting the board. I think that is looking to be exclusively paired with this Kronks, unless he draws Galakron very soon. Because playing Kronks is certainly something he's going to want to do this game to get access to his Galakron, which is now already 3 invokes out of 4. But it's an extremely slow play against Demon Hunter, but it's an extremely slow play that you can mitigate by just rushing the 6/6 in the same turn.
There's a skull.
Yeah, it's a skull that gets hand-locked on the right-hand side of his hand, though. So he doesn't get to play it immediately. Is it still the pick?
I think so, because it gets him locked. Next turn he draws a card. If that card's 2 mana or below, he can still just play it that turn.
So he has 16 cards in his deck.
Oh.
There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's exactly 50-50 to draw a card that lets him play it next turn. However, 2 of the cards that don't let him play a Skull of Gul'dan are Skull of Gul'dan.
I think I'd take that chance.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I drew a 6 cost.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I drew Skull and now my Skull is an outcast. Oh, I'm so unlucky.
Imagine if we saw that and then the player just didn't play Skull. It's like, no, I guess I'll make a different play now. Looks as good a Kronks rush as I've seen for a while, honestly. Taking down the buffed Shadow Weaver seems reasonable.
Yeah. Boar does also now have to find a turn to play that Seal Fate, though. Because that's now his 4th invoke, which I think you'll be very interested in. And that also looks like it's pairing very well with the Kobold Lackey this turn.
That's true. It's just the rest of the turn then looks
great,
weak, right? Because he can't play Bone Ray. So I think do the awkward turn now. Oh, okay. I was going to say, do the slightly clunkier turn now, and then just have 8 mana to just do whatever you want next turn to secure a Galakron play, and then go for it. Would have been a good plan, but BoarControl going to go about it a slightly different way, and plays neither Kronks or Seal Fate.
Okay. And get behind it. You don't have to be so linear in your plans here. I think, you know, Rush plus Kronks would have been something that he was planning, but you can also just argue that by making this play, he gets so far ahead on board that he's just going to have time to play Kronks next turn if he wants to anyway.
Demons? Demons.
And just a reminder as well, this is the upper bracket match in Group A, which means if BoarControl wins this, takes this game, he's just done till Sunday. He can just book his spot on the final day and get ever closer to getting a spot at Worlds already in Season 1 this year. It'd be a huge deal for BoarControl.
So there is that Blade Dance pick from Bunnyhoppor, which probably I didn't pay quite enough attention to. He was significantly behind on board at the time, so taking cards that allowed him to catch up did make some sense. I was personally leaning towards Spectral Sight before I ran the numbers on the Skull of Gul'dan, and then I was fairly convinced by the Skull of Gul'dan, but actually I think that wasn't necessarily assessing the state of the game correctly, and I think maybe picking up the board clear, since Bunny did already have that Warglaives equipped, was actually pretty smart. And you can see the fruits of his labor here as he's able to create an extremely strong board clear.
Small note though, with Seal Fate, just to draw the or get the Lackey, BoarControl is suspiciously close to lethal right now. He's got what, 13 with the Dagger Swing, and then the if he used everything, but he could just Seal Fate this turn, see what lackey he got, equip a dagger and swing, and then maybe set up for next turn.
Yep.
You are too late. His return is nigh.
I'm going to go for the more clean play instead of going all in. Bear in mind, though, this Galakron is fully invoked now, right? So he, post Seal of Fate.
Correct,
Seal
yeah.
Fate. It'll be fully invoked. So even using this Eviscerate on the 6/4, well, if Galakron gets a weapon on the 5/2, then he's going to make up that damage a little bit later on if he chooses the slightly slower route.
I love how I've infected everyone else with that mistake now. That makes me happy. And I've like stopped doing it, so now if anyone tunes in now, it's like, God, why does everyone except Sottle say it wrong? Jeez.
Because everyone's cool. That's why. That'd be my response. Is Seal Fate going to clean up the Shadow Weaver? I do think it's worth it. Although, again, you have to say, oh, well, it delays Galakron another turn. Right, but next turn you get the weapon. You get 4 0-cost cards. I think it's worthwhile.
So many options.
The Lackey could still be good as well from the Seal Fate. There's the Skyvateer to just drop down for, honestly, some guaranteed damage outside of exactly Altreus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Ticks all the boxes for me, Sol.
So many options.
I think step 1 is just count every possible combination of 4 cards in your opponent's hand and make sure you cannot die from 17 here with a Metamorphosis hero power. Because I think you're extremely far ahead. And I think if the only thing you have to play around is just dying straight up on this turn, then that could be worth doing. But I can't think of one myself.
Well, it would have to be Skull, Altreus, the Nuts, right?
Sure. Yeah, okay, that'll probably get there.
With you already having 2 Twin Slices in hand, so they're not the Skulls.
Right.
The Skull cards. That's what would have to happen right now. So...
Ah!
Wait a minute.
So
and Altreus would have to come off the Skull so you can hero power.
Yes.
Alas, poor warlock.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep.
Yes. So if he can't do it, and he's facing down this, then does he have to go fishing with Vulpera Scoundrel instead?
For what, though?
Does I-Beam help?
Sure.
Mana Burn doesn't help if his worry is Galakron, which he knows.
I mean,
is
I-Beam,
there, obviously.
I-Beam doesn't help, right? Because you'd be still leaving up a 6/6. Like, how much does that actually help you in this scenario?
Oh yeah, because it's still hero power, right? Yeah, you're right. For some reason, I thought you could I-Beam and hero power to kill the cross boss. That'd be silly. Ouch.
Ouch, indeed. Not even sure Bunny got this turn done. There is a lot of action still to be taken. We might just have some desync on our end, but it looks like he got it all done. Okay. Yeah, you can see how big the desync is because Boar's already playing his turn.
Yeah, that was going to be the game. BoarControl hands up 3-0 over Bunnyhoppor. 2 points here. 1. You've always got to be happy if you just get to sweep Bunnyhoppor, right? Bunnyhoppor, fantastic Hearthstone player, one of the greats. But also, BoarControl, in a very easy day for him, log in, get your 3-0 victory over Bunnyhoppor, move on, log out, you're ready for Sunday, and you can go into the final playoffs day for a chance at that Worlds spot. It's absolutely huge for BoarControl, very exciting, and he must be feeling pretty great after that match.
I think he will, yeah, and again, super happy to see it from Boar. And also, I don't think anyone will really be expecting to be 3-0ing people easily. Firstly, just because of the caliber of player that you're up against at this stage. The caliber of player that you're up against at any stage in Grandmasters is insane. But when you get down to the postseason, you know you're going to be in for a tough series. But also, I think because the lineups are just so unknown right now and so in flux, I don't think anyone really has an enormous amount of faith in deck number 3 and deck number 4. So when you see Board just roll out Druid, game 1, win, roll out Rogue, game 1, win, like I don't think that's how anyone's expecting their lineups to perform right now. I feel like they expect to be scrapping for wins with their 3rd and 4th deck against the likes of Demon Hunter or Warrior or whatever they're leaving up. So anyone that gets out with a 3-0 under their belt is going to feel pretty good about their day's work for sure. And Boar doubly so, because as you quite rightly said, that is one of the easiest days' work in Hearthstone that he would have had in quite some time.
Yeah, 100%. Let's take a look at the group and see how it's shaping up now. As if you're just joining us, we are moving through Group A today. We'll be doing Group B tomorrow. And just a reminder, we will be playing out one elimination bracket match every day this weekend. So that's going to be coming up after we get through this group. So as you can see there, BoarControl, he had a bye because of his placement at the top of Division A this past season and round robin, which means he only had to play one match if he won it, and he did, taking down Bunnyhoppor at 3-0. He goes through to Sunday, whereas now Bunnyhoppor being knocked down into the decider match, we've got Boston versus Seiko coming up, and then the winner plays Bunnyhoppor for that final spot to go into Sunday. So still a good chunk of Hearthstone left for you today, but an exciting day just to really start to narrow down which players we can look at to have a chance at going to Worlds for the European region.
Yeah, and as Raven correctly pointed out, after all of this is concluded for the day and we have our 2 qualifiers out of Group A, we are going to dip our feet into the murky depths of the relegation bracket. But I like to see it as, at least for Friday and Saturday, we're ending the day on a positive, because we're not going to end the day with a player getting relegated. We're going to end each day with a player being safe from relegation, because they have picked up the win that they need to escape the relegation bracket. It's only on Sunday that we are going to hit our emotional point yet again of having to wave goodbye to one of our beloved Grandmasters.
Yeah, still one more player to say goodbye to, but that also means that next season there's going to be 3 new players for us to introduce you to. And just to remind, if you wonder what happened with Boston and why he was just there in the group and we've not really seen too much today, at the start of the day we did